Hey guys, welcome to Southern Gal True Crime. We feature missing persons, cold cases, and more. And today I have a cold case from 1994 from Arkansas. I've been looking into this case, researching it for a couple of weeks now, but it so happens that today, as I'm recording this, which is May 9th, it is the 29th anniversary of this case since this young lady disappeared. So I thought it was appropriate to go ahead and do a video on it, although I probably won't get it uploaded till tomorrow. But nonetheless, this case is a very sad case, kind of complicated. Lots of, I want to say twists and turns, but some interesting things. But before we get to that, as always feature a missing person. And today's missing person is Holly Marie Williams. She is a 16-year-old black female, 5 foot 4 inches tall, 175 pounds, with brown eyes and black hair. And she went missing on April 16th of this year, so not too long ago, from Bryant, Arkansas. So, once again, Holly Marie Williams. If you have any information or you would like to find out some more information about this case, you can call the Bryant Police Department at 501-847-0211. Very important. That's the main goal. Priority of this channel is to get the word out for our missing persons and these unsolved cold cases. Alright, so today's cold case, we are going to be looking at the disappearance of Cleashindra Denise Hall. Get my notes out. I have pages and pages of notes. It says she disappeared on May 9th, 1994 from her place of employment, which was, she worked for a gentleman out of his house. She did clerical work for him. And the night that she disappeared, sorry, my tablet's not cooperating. Anyway, there's varying stories about how and when she left, when she finished her work that evening, how and when she left. One account says she walked home. Another account says she got into a car with somebody. What we do know is that she called her mother at, I believe, about 8, because she usually got off work about 8. So she called her mother maybe a little bit before 8 and said that she was going to be working late, and that she would give her mother a call when she was ready for her to come pick her up, because usually her mother or a member of her family picked her up from work. Unfortunately, she never called her mother to come pick her up, and she has never been seen again. Like I said, there are various accounts of when she left the house, who she might have left with, if she left with someone, if she was walking, but we will get into all that. First, I will give you just a brief rundown, basic information, and this information comes from the charleyproject.org. And like I said, it's Cleashindra Denise Hall. She went missing on May 9th, 1994 from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. She is classified as endangered missing. Once again, black female. She's a black female. Her birthday is March 30th, 1976, which if she was alive today, she would be 47. She was 18 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was 5'8" to 5'9", 120 pounds. She was last seen wearing a white two-piece short set printed with large navy blue polka dots on the shorts and navy blue stripes on the blouse. She had white socks, white sneakers. She has small stud earrings and a white bow tie ponytail holder. She had black hair, brown eyes. She has a surgical scar on the outside of her left knee. One of her front teeth is slightly chipped. Her nickname is Clea. And at the time she wore extensions and press-on nails. She is right-handed and has a slender build. So that is the basic information. And I'll just give you kind of a timeline here of her disappearance. Clea had called her mother from her after-school job on Fawcett Road in Pine Bluff, Arkansas at approximately 8 p.m. on May 9th, 1994. She was employed after school by Dr. Larry Amos, who ran a business that supported in-home daycare centers. And there's not a lot of information that I could find about Dr. Amos. And he is a major player in this case, as we will get into. But from what I understand, he ran a like a non-profit organization that helped out and supported in-home daycare centers. Clea did clerical work out of his home, and her family members normally gave her a ride home after her shift ended at about 8:30 p.m. She told her mother that she would call again after she clocked out for the evening. Her mom had fallen asleep shortly after the conversation. Her mom woke up about 1, realized that Clea hadn't called, so of course she was frantic. So her mother called Dr. Amos. And another thing that was interesting, may mean something, may mean nothing, is that she called at 1 o'clock and he answered on the first ring. Now, it could have been he was just up, still doing work. But she called him and, let's see. She telephoned Dr. Amos and was told that Dr. Amos said that Clea had departed at approximately 8:30 p.m. when her ride arrived. Now, when we get more into this, there is conflicting stories about whether she was picked up. There was one account, one person said that she was picked up. One person said that she walked home, which her family and friends has said that her walking home would be very unusual. Usually, sorry, my sinuses are acting up. Usually, in the very few times, maybe a couple of times that she walked home, I'd read in one of the articles that I was researching that her brother had actually walked, because where she worked and her home was just a few blocks away. So a couple of times when she had walked home, her brother had actually walked to where she was working and walked her home. So it would be very unusual for her to walk home alone. So keep that in mind. Alright. Okay, so Dr. Amos said that she left at 8:30 when her ride arrived, although no one else had been scheduled to pick her up. And Clea told a co-worker that she would be walking home, something she didn't ordinarily do. Okay, in the morning, her parents checked to see if she was with her boyfriend. Some accounts I read said it was her boyfriend, and some accounts said it was just a boy that she liked. So, either way, they talked to the boy she liked, and he said that he had not seen her or talked to her. He was checked out, and he took a polygraph test, and it was inconclusive. The parents and her brother checked at the school because she didn't show up for her early band practice, didn't show up for school. She did not have a purse, identification, extra clothes, or any money when she vanished. Her parents called the police at 9 p.m. on May 10th, but because she was 18, the police would not do a missing persons report for 24 hours. And she, like I said, she has never been seen again. She just vanished into the night. Authorities did say they do not believe that she left on her own accord. By all accounts, she got along well with her family. She was ranked as a top student in her graduating high school class at Watson Chapel High School. She did not have a history of running away, which is a very important fact when we get into the circumstances of her disappearance. And in fact, she had never stayed out late without permission from her parents. So this goes to victimology, which is one thing that I've learned just watching professional people on YouTube, as in retired law enforcement, profilers, cold case detectives. You always look at victimology. Would she have stayed out late without permission? Would she have walked home? Would she have run away? These are all things that are important that detectives always ask family and friends. Just a little piece, like I said, just things that I've picked up watching the professionals who actually know what they're talking about, as opposed to me who just, I tried to use deductive reasoning, critical thinking, logic, common sense, Anyway. Alright. It says Clea was also excited and looking forward to giving the commencement address at her high school graduation ceremony, which took place 2 weeks after her disappearance. She had been accepted at Tennessee State University, where she planned to major in pre-medicine, and eventually she wanted to become a pediatrician. Alright, so that is the basic information. Just a little bit more about her. She was active in school and church activities, including her school and church choirs, the school band. She enjoyed reading. Foul play is suspected in her case, and investigators believe she was probably taken away. Have to be careful what words I use, or YouTube will pull the video. By someone she knew and trusted, and her case remains unsolved. Alright, and let's see if okay. And if you have any information, I got some number, Pine Bluff Police Department, 870-543-5111, 5112, or 5100. Alright, so that is the basic information. Now, let me see where I want to go next. Okay. I found an article that gives a little bit more about talks to her mom. I always like to find articles that have family members and friends talking about the victims, because the victims are the most important part of these cases. Their day-to-day life, what they were like, just things in that nature. So this is from NBCnews.com, and I will put a link to all the articles I read from in the description box, so you can go back and read them. Because some I'll read all the articles, and some I'll just take little bits of information that I find interesting about this case. So this is from NBCnews.com. And this is from, I believe, 2017. It says, another Mother's Day passes as Laurel Hall, which is Clea's mom, searches for her daughter. Alright, Mother's Day just hasn't been the same for Laurel Hall for more than 2 decades. As her family celebrates, she is reminded of the ever-present fact that her daughter Cleashindra isn't there. This year, which was in 2017, marked 23 years since she last spoke with her daughter, and she's been searching ever since. You can just imagine the heartbreak of this mother and this family not knowing what happened to their child. When my family gets together for Mother's Day, we all think about her, Laurel told Dateline. My grandchildren will always ask, "Where is Aunt Clea?" And I get tears in my eyes because I don't know the answer. In May of 1994, Cleashindra, whom everyone called Clea, was 2 weeks away from graduating high school in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. She had big plans for the future. The honor student landed a summer internship at a Boston pediatrician's office and had been accepted into the pre-med program at Tennessee State University. Clea was so excited to go to college, Laura Hall told Dateline. She was always playing with children. It was her dream to become a pediatrician. But Clea never attended her graduation ceremony. Clea never started classes that fall, because on May 9th, 1994, Clea vanished. At 5 p.m. that evening, Laurel dropped her daughter off at work a few blocks away from their home. She worked in the home of Dr. Larry Amos, who ran a nonprofit charitable organization that supported in-home daycare centers. At 8 p.m. that evening, Laurel got a phone call from her daughter. Now, this is one thing I find interesting that will come into my theories or ideas of what may have happened to Clea. So at 8 p.m., Clea called her mom and said, "Did anyone try to call me?" Now, being a very former teenage girl and young adult, of course this is in the 90s, cell phones were not really, they were just now, I don't even know if they had cell phones in the 90s, maybe just starting out. But when I can just imagine her saying, "Did anyone call me? Has anybody called me?" Now, to me, as a former teenage girl, that would mean she was expecting a call from a boy. Now, that's just me. This is just my opinion. But like I said, I know how I was when I was 18 years old, and if I was excited or wanting to know if I got a phone call, it was, you better believe, I was waiting for a phone call from a boy. So anyway, moving on. Her mother responded no, and Clea hung up. That was the last time she spoke to her daughter. Around 12:45 a.m., Laurel's husband, Willie, came home and found his wife asleep on the couch. Then he checked Clea's room and realized she had not come home. According to Laurel, this was very strange because Clea never worked past 10 o'clock. It's another important thing to keep in mind. She immediately called Dr. Amos, who said that Clea signed out of the office at 8:30 p.m. "I stayed up all night waiting for her," Laurel said, "but I thought she was just a teen trying to flex her independence," which is natural. Most teens do that at some point or another. Laurel called the police the next morning, but they told her she needed to wait 24 hours to file a missing persons report since she was 18 and considered an adult. At 5 p.m., Laurel filed the report, but she says she felt the police did not take her concerns very seriously. The next day, she decided to conduct her own search in the wooded area across from the office where Clea worked. Laurel and her husband also put up flyers to try to find anyone with information on their daughter's whereabouts. A few days later, the Pine Bluff Police Department started to get more involved in the search. "We looked, we hunted, we spent months searching, but she is just gone and we don't know how," said Detective Lieutenant Terry Hobson, who has been on the case since Clea first went missing. We were told she walked out of that house at 8:30 p.m., but we have not been able to find a shred of physical evidence, he told Dateline. However, investigators say they do have more than one person of interest, and we will get into the persons of interest that they mention. We can't rule anyone out, said Detective Lieutenant Hobson. We can't even rule out that she left on her own. I don't know how you just disappear. And these kind of cases drive me, I won't say drive me crazy, but how can somebody just disappear? We all know that it happens because we have a lot of these cases, but to me, it is just unfathomable how somebody can just walk out, walk away, and just never be seen again. That's just, I guess, just that human nature of just wanting to know what happened. All right. Laurel strongly believes that her daughter would not have decided to run away. She didn't even have a bank account or a cell phone. According to investigators, Clea's employer, Dr. Larry Amos, is considered a person of interest. And we will get into Dr. Amos. In this case, the last person who saw her was Dr. Amos, but that doesn't make him guilty, so let's keep that in mind. But there's just some very interesting things that have happened concerning Dr. Amos. Laura believes that Amos's behavior after Clea's disappearance seems suspicious. I don't think he has done enough to eliminate himself as a suspect, she said. A day after Clea went missing, Amos left the state for a business trip. Now you might say, well, yes, that seems suspicious, but I read in an article that it was a planned business trip. He already had it planned. So we'll take that with a grain of salt. According to Detective Lieutenant Hobson, police were initially granted full access to Amos's home on his return, but then he got into a disagreement with another detective who no longer works at the department. He then denied police access to search the home. Now and I don't know if it mentions in here, but they did not search Dr. Amos's home until 2 weeks after Clea disappeared. I don't know why they waited 2 weeks. I'm sure they have their reasons. Like I said, we as citizens don't know, the extent, and, Dr. Amos has his rights, but it was another thing to keep in mind, 2 weeks before they did the initial search of Dr. Amos's home, the place where Clea was last seen. So keep that in mind. Okay. Police have not found any physical evidence that connects Amos or any other person to Clea's disappearance. Still, after working in the police for 30 years, Detective Hobson is hopeful that this case will be solved. If somebody has harmed her or taken her, there are very few times that somebody does something like that and doesn't tell anybody, he said. For the Hall family, Clea's disappearance has been very difficult. It's been hard on my whole family, said Laurel. She was my only daughter. We have been frustrated with the police, but also guilt-ridden. Maybe we didn't do enough to protect her. As the years go by, Laurel and her husband keep praying for answers. We keep getting older, but we won't die without knowing what happened to my daughter, she said. And God, please, I do hope that they do find out what happened to their daughter before they do pass. If you have any information on Clea's case, you are urged to call the Pine Bluff Police Department at 870-730-2090. Alright, so I just wanted to read, sorry, I can't get comfortable here, give you a little insight into Clea, what she was like, her tendencies. Once again, it goes to victimology, which always has to be looked at. Alright. Alright, let me see what we got going next. What I want to talk about next. I'm telling you, I've got my notebook here with pages and pages of notes, but I will try to make this as brief as possible. Okay. So we read that. Okay, so basically we have, in my opinion, and the general consensus is 3 things that could have happened to Clea. 1, she ran away, or left of her own accord, as I call it, since she was 18 and an adult. She was abducted, either by a stranger or somebody she knew, or she was harmed by somebody she knew. And so we will, and I'm just going to give you, and I do have some more, sorry, oh goodness, sorry, I've been having trouble with my back, and I can't get comfortable. Alright, so we will start with, oh my goodness, sorry, anybody who's watched my videos knows I have technical difficulties. Okay, so we will start with the 3 possibilities. And these are just my opinions, just from reasoning and thinking it through and reading what she was like, victimology. Okay, so number 1 would be, did she run away? Now, to me, I'm putting this on the very bottom of my list. By all accounts, from friends, family, she was not a problem child, didn't have problems at home. I did read somewhere that they did have a strict household, but not strict where I don't think that she would feel the need to run away, that type of home. Look at my notes. Okay, so family says she has no history of problems. She had never run away before. She had never even stayed out late without getting permission from her parents. She always called home if she was going to be late or she was going to go somewhere after work. Now, another thing that I have also learned from watching real professionals who do this for a living is always talk to the friends. Because especially teenagers, young adults, if they have problems or things going on, a boy they liked, they're not going to tell their parents. They're going to go to their friends. So, and I'm sure police did their due diligence, but these cold case detectives and profilers say you always talk to the friends because they're going to know more about some things than parents are. Like I said, I'm sure the police talk to friends, and they would know if anything was going on in Clea's life that her parents might not have known about. Alright, so in my list, runaway is at the bottom of the list. So that takes us to, was she abducted? So we have 2 options. If she was abducted, it was either a stranger abduction or somebody she knew. I am going to put stranger abduction just right above runaway. If she was abducted, I would tend to believe that she would be abducted by somebody that she knew. She might not have been good friends with them. It could have just been acquaintance, somebody she knew from school, from around town. There was mention of this boy been referred to as a boyfriend or a boy she liked. He would his car was searched. He was given a polygraph, which was inconclusive. He said he had not heard or seen Clea. So I would tend to put that next. So we have runaway, stranger abduction, abduction by somebody new, somebody she knew, which would be this boy she liked, which in my opinion is unlikely. But I keep going back to this phone call. When she called her mom to tell her that she was going to be working late and that she would call her when she was ready to be picked up, and she asked if anybody had called for her. Did she have any messages? Once again, I'm thinking it was a boy. She was waiting or hoping or expecting a call from a boy. Now, whether or not this person had anything to do with it, we don't know. This is just what I'm thinking. And did the parent, and it could be a boy or a person that her parents or friends didn't know anything about. Like I said, it could have been somebody she just met. But to me, that sticks in my mind is this phone call. And she called at 8 o'clock. So this is one scenario. She calls her mom at 8, says, okay, I got to work late. I'll call you when I'm ready to come home. Could it be that she was going to get off at 8 at her normal time? She was going to have somebody, maybe a boy, pick her up, go hang out. Maybe she didn't want her parents to know. So this boy picked her up. They went out, hung out. He dropped her, or was supposed to drop her back off at Dr. Amos's, and then she was going to call her mom and come pick her up. That's just a theory I have, my opinion, or a possibility. That's one, like I said, okay, one possibility. I don't, and the conflicting stories come in where Dr. Amos says that at 8, or I think he said 8:30, somebody picked Clea up in a car. She got in a car and left with somebody. But now there is a co-worker, I read in an article, that said Clea said she was going to walk home. She told the co-worker she was going to walk home. So there we have conflicting stories. Which, like I mentioned before, it would be, her friends and family said it would be very unusual for her to walk home. So, conflicting stories. Red flag, for me at least. So I got that possibility. Did somebody pick Clea up? And something, maybe it was somebody she didn't know very well, and something happened, and the rest is history. Okay, so we've covered the runaway, we've covered the abduction. Now, the general consensus, or the consensus of most people, is they believe that Dr. Amos did something to Clea. And there is a lot of inconsistencies and things that would point in that direction. So we will go to Dr. Amos. Let's see if there's any other. I got so many articles here. I'm trying to decide. Okay. So as far as Dr. Amos, let's see, let me find the night, okay, of what he said happened. And this is from the PSU.edu website, Without a Trace. Let me find what I'm looking for. Okay, so it says, on May 9th, 1984, Clea showed up at her job at Dr. Amos's home office as usual. Dr. Amos reports that all went as usual. Clea helped him sign some checks, file some documents, and do her usual task. Nearing the end of the night, around 8 p.m., Clea realized she may need to stay a little later than usual, so she called her mother to tell her to expect a phone call when she was ready to be picked up. Lauren would never see her daughter again. Okay, so according to Dr. Amos, Clea left his office sometime after 8:30 p.m., leaving through his garage and getting into a car of whom he assumed at the time was her mother. While Clea's mother grew panicked, she was assured by those around her that Clea had probably left to go with friends after her job, and being an 18-year-old about to graduate high school, decided that she didn't need her parents' approval. Her mother, however, knew that this would be out of character and not something her daughter would do. Alright, so that is one of the stories, and we will get into, because apparently Dr. Amos had about 3 different versions of what happened when Clea left. Alright. So Dr. Amos was the last to see Clea alive. Alright, I think that's it. Alright, so, and then we have the conflicting stories. Dr. Amos says she left in the car. The co-worker said he or she either saw Clea take off walking, or Clea told the co-worker that she was going to walk home. Alright, so, let's see. Okay, so, and then we got, Dr. Amos's house was searched 2 weeks after Clea initially disappeared, which, if he had anything to do with her disappearance, will be plenty of time for him to get rid of any evidence that may have been in there. Once again, if he had anything to do with it. In 2011, due to a tip, and I'm still unclear about where the tip came from, his house was searched, and I do have an article that gives the details about that. Alright. And this is from March 29, 2012. Update. Police search home after receiving tip about 1994 cold case. Jefferson County authorities searched the house and property of a Pine Bluff man, Dr. Amos, today in connection to a cold case from 1994. Officers served a search warrant this morning at the home of Dr. Larry Amos. They say this is related to the disappearance of Cleashindra Hall. Our crews tell us that cadaver dogs were at the home of Dr. Amos. There is also radar equipment being used to search the concrete of the property. At one point, the Pine Bluff Police Chief and the Jefferson County District Attorney walked into the home with Amos. They later removed a few brown paper bags from the home, but police won't say what's inside. Investigators say that they received a tip recently that led them to securing a search warrant. Now, I did read, and take it with a grain of salt, because I don't know, that if it, can't confirm it, that This tip came from two contractors had gone into the house to do some kind of contract work, and supposedly they were tearing down sheetrock, and they saw blood spatter, flies, and smelled a horrible smell. Now, like I said, take it with a grain of salt, because I could never find an article from a police statement in any articles that confirm this, so just take it with a grain of salt, as always. Let's see, and I believe that is all of that. Yeah, they said, like I said, they used cadaver. They searched for six to 7 hours. They took brown paper bags out, and I think I read in another article that supposedly what they took out of the house was not turned into the crime lab for 40 days. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. But they did say that all the evidence was tested and nothing was found. So, there's that. Alright. It was also reported that after Clea went missing, her parents put up flyers around town, and that Dr. Amos was observed tearing down the flyers. Once again, not confirmed. Just I read it in an article, but I read it in more than one article. So that's a little red flag there. Let's see. Sorry, going through my notes here. Tore down the missing posters. He, as of 2021, he is considered a person of interest. About 3 days after Clea disappeared, Dr. Amos had called Clea's parents to see if they had any news. They said no, and that's when he left to go on the business trip. I said that could be something, could be nothing, but just something to consider. He initially let the police search the house, got into a disagreement with a detective, and then he kicked the police out and said they couldn't search anymore. Alright, we already went over the cadaver dogs. He did refuse to take a polygraph. Now, once again, could be something, could be nothing. A lot of people, they could be perfectly innocent and still not want to take a polygraph. So, what is the case for Dr. Amos having maybe done something to Clea, and why? So, we went over what we do know. So, what we don't know, or what we have question, or what I have questions about, is if Dr. Amos was responsible for Clea's possible harming, disappearance, what would be his motive? Now, I'm not going to mention any names because you can look at my other channels that I subscribe to see who I trust when I'm watching to get who I watch to get the facts. And one always says there you can basically break down motive into 3 main categories, which has subcategories. GSR, which usually stands for gunshot residue, but in his analogy, when it comes to motive, greed, sex, revenge. And if you watch, I'm sure we watch some of the same true crime channels, you probably know who I'm talking about. But like I said, you can look at my list of subscribed channels. So as far as motive, oh, and I forgot to mention, let me find it. If I can find which one it is. Oh, up here. Okay. Okay, going to maybe motive for Dr. Amos. Okay, so while she was in school, excuse me, excuse me, Clea held an after-school job with Dr. Larry Amos in his home office, typically picked him up by her parents. Okay, let me get to Clea's parents recalled that she enjoyed her job with Dr. Amos, rarely complaining. Clea did mention to them before, though, that she believed he may be involved in some sort of shady business based on the checks she signed for him and other financial documents she sorted through on a daily basis. Dr. Amos was also known to be an extremely cheap man. Almost any time he contracted work on his house or office, he would pick out something that he didn't find up to standard and never ended up paying. However, with all of this aside, Clea seemed happy and content with her job and only had good things to say. So, maybe some shady business dealings. Like I said, unconfirmed. This is just coming from what Clea said. His wife, I believe this is in the same article, his wife alleged that he could be abusive and violent. Now, once again, alleged, because it's just her word. Okay, so I think that's all that I wanted to get in when it comes to possible motive. Alright. So, possible motives. Once again, GSR, greed, sex, revenge. It could be, which should fall under the greed, I think, I would assume. Maybe he did have some shady dealings of some sort, and Clea, who does the books and knew the money situation, may have found out something and maybe not threatened to say anything, but Dr. Amos was afraid she would say something and wanted to keep her mouth shut, and maybe he kept her mouth shut permanently. Now, this is just all I want to say speculation, but just possibilities as far as motive. Sexual motive, maybe he wanted to try to get close to Clea and she didn't want to have anything to do with him. She rebuffed him. He got angry. Like I said, his wife alleges that he was abusive and violent, and maybe he did not like her rebuffing him, and things happen. So that, I believe, is what I have for as far as possible motive. What we don't know, what we have questions are, if Dr. Amos did something to Clea, because he was married at the time and I believe had a son. Now, in some accounts I've read, the son was older, and then something I read just right before I started the video that the son was young at the time. If Clea was harmed in that house, who was there? Was anybody else there besides Clea and Dr. Amos? Could it be that the wife and the son were gone out somewhere, leaving them alone, which would give him time, if he did something, to do whatever he did, get rid of the body, clean up, etc., etc. Or if the wife and son were there, were they too, and they saw what happened, were they too scared or threatened? If you say something, you'll be next. That type of thing. Were they complicit? Were they involved with helping, at least maybe not commit a crime, but help cover it up? Once again, this is just possibilities. And I would love to hear your possibilities. So please leave your comments in the comment section. Just always be respectful of the victims' families, and everybody involved in the case. Back to the coworker who said that they saw Clea walking home. Could the coworker, whoever she have been there, had something to do with it in conjunction with Dr. Amos? Like I said, these are just all just possibilities that that I've just thought through. Let's see, what else? Oh, there goes my camera again. Alright, so I think we have covered everything. Let me go through my articles again, see if I forgot anything. Bear with me. Oh my goodness. Why are you not working? There we go. The tablet wouldn't let me in for some reason. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think that's all the articles I had. Alright, so, once again, 3 possibilities. Runaway, abduction, harmed by somebody she knew. Once again, my list. Runaway is on the bottom of my list. Abduction is next. Stranger abduction would be lower. Abducted by somebody she knew would be above that. Either unlikely, but her boyfriend, boy she liked, or this mysterious, what I'm calling a mysterious possible caller that she was, expecting a call from. Well, I'm going to put interchangeable abduction or Dr. Amos. Like I said, the general consensus for most people is that Dr. Amos had something to do with her disappearance and possible harming. Like I said, I'm undecided. Still, that call, I keep going back to that call. When she asked, has anybody called me? Has anybody left a message? To me, that just screams that she was expecting a call, most likely from a male. So like I said, either abduction by somebody she was expecting a call from, maybe somebody her parents and friends didn't know about, she just met, whatever the case may be. But like I said, I want to hear your opinion. So do leave a comment. This is a very sad case, a very important case. Like I said, today, as I'm recording this, 29 years since Clea went missing. And there really hasn't been any new recent stories done on this case. So I wanted to do my little part in my little channel to get her name back out there. So please do like the video, share the video, friends, family, any true crime groups you're in. I very much appreciate you watching and helping get the word out for our missing persons and our unsolved cold cases. While you're here, before you leave, please do subscribe. Hit the bell so you get notifications of when I upload new videos. I'm going to try to, I think at first I was trying to do too much. I may do one case a week, give me more time between my real job that I have, 40-hour-a-week job, to really delve into these cases and research them and try to bring you the best, most factual information to the best of my knowledge. If you don't want to share the videos, you can share the links. I put the links to all the articles in the description box. Once again, thanks for watching. I very much appreciate it. Until next time, take care.